Welcome to Southern Life. On today's video, we're going to be driving through Brandon, Florida in a circle. We're going to start off in Riverview and head north. Now keep in mind that we're going to be in Riverview, Brandon, Valrico, Seffner, Mango. So we're going to be in all these different places and maybe even Tampa for a little bit. So these are the eastern suburbs of Tampa that wrap around Brandon. I'm not going to get too technical with exactly which suburb we're in. You get the general idea. You can always refer to the map at the start of the video. So for general references, we're going to be in Brandon today. Technically, right now, we're obviously in Riverview. Now, this area is plagued with horrendous traffic. So you're going to notice throughout the video lines like this just about everywhere we go. This area has grown a lot, but the infrastructure really hasn't caught up. And it's kind of laid out really horribly. So it's a really horrible traffic area in general. But the reason we decided to go to Brandon is because we had recently done a video about arrest reports in Tampa, and I noticed how many people getting arrested were in Sefner, Brandon, or even Valrico. So I was like, seems like things have really got bad in this part of Tampa. At least there's a lot of arrests coming out of this area. So it's crazy because you think about this area kind of as a suburban area, but it's also very contrasty. You might have like beautiful gated communities on one side of the road and then like a mobile home park on the other. So it's very contrasty. And this is an area that I Uber drive in as well, and it's really bad for tips, and the passengers are usually kind of weird. So yeah, it's an area I'm kind of familiar with. After all, in theory, if there's no traffic, it's only 45 minutes north of where I live right now in Lakewood Ranch. Realistically, you need at least an hour of traffic. And it's a really affordable area, kind of nice, but it seems like, you know, as Tampa got more expensive, a lot of the people that were poor from Tampa ended up out here. So a lot of the more affordable housing out here actually became kind of undesirable. It's an effect that's happening throughout the entire Tampa metropolitan area, where the suburbs are actually becoming pretty grimy because somebody in the city can be like, well, I can actually sell my house in the city and get a bigger house in the suburbs. So now a lot of people from the city are moving to the suburbs, and the suburbs are going to crap. So right now we're in Riverview heading north. So after looking at these arrest reports, I was like, what the crap is going on out here? Let me go out here and kind of see what's going on in this area. And I can say it looks like it's gone to crap since the last time we were here. There's obviously more hurricane damage that still hasn't got cleaned up, but it isn't even that. It just seems like there's more homeless people, more garbage. Things are a little bit more unkept. The businesses look a little bit more run down, so it doesn't look as nice as it's like. I really feel like Brandon, Riverview, Valrico, all these suburbs have kind of taken a nosedive. And while it's a newer part of the city, it's also kind of not as nice as it once was. You know, these were nice neighborhoods maybe 20 years ago, but today they're starting to get run down. So I'm probably not going to narrate the entirety of this video because it's a lot of footage and I don't want to talk for 3 hours, but you know, there'll be parts of the video I will narrate and explain a little bit, and there's other parts of the video where I won't. What's really aggravating about this area is that there's a lot of stop signs, and it's just kind of weird. It's like you get these stop signs, there's no light intersections, so in the middle of the day, it's pretty aggravating actually that you have to wait at all these stop signs because there's no lights out here. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. This one's not too bad, but you'll see we'll end up stuck at stop signs for a very long time. There's a real lack of infrastructure out here. So pay attention to how backed up this particular stop sign is. Going northbound, it really wasn't too bad, but it's about 2:30 in the afternoon. People are coming back from work. You'll see these long lines in one direction. And this is literally what happens throughout this whole area. Now, last time we were out here, we ran into a lot of like road raging and angry people out in traffic. Didn't run into anybody angry and road raging on this particular day, but actually people were pretty nice in traffic compared to last time where it was really nasty. But I did make a video about how nasty people were out here last time, so maybe word got around and people started being a little bit nicer. But you can see here that this particular stop sign's backed up for probably about a mile almost, and you got more cars coming behind it. So this is kind of the thing that sucks about living in this area is you're stuck just waiting for cars to go one by one. Why they haven't put in better infrastructure, I'm not sure. Also, you can look at the roads and they're not that great, in fact. And I think we now entered Brandon. You can see there's like a total complete change of landscape here. Now it's like there's a school on the right. It's more open. So we're leaving Riverview and entering Brandon. Looks like it's a completely different landscape now, but the same problem with traffic congestion in all directions. Cars literally stopped on the road. It's a theme that's going to feel redundant throughout the rest of this video. But you can see that is a brand new school right there. So that's awesome that there's a new school there. The school systems here seem pretty diverse. I guess a lot of the people, it's a pretty diverse area to begin with, and it's getting more diverse than ever. It's pretty diverse. So like it's kind of not like, it's suburban, but it's got a lot of diversity, which is the only thing good about that. I wouldn't say the only thing, but you got Cuban food. There's a place that we like. We'll eat later on in the video. See that. So it's a lot of Cuban food, Puerto Rican food, Dominican food, Colombian food. So you get this kind of suburban feel, but then you get all the good food you'd want from the inner city. So now that we're in Brandon, I got to mention that last time we were out here, there was a lot of homelessness. And it seemed like on this trip, we saw a lot of homelessness as well. So another interesting thing about this area that I've noticed is that when people cross the roads here, they don't use the crosswalk in front of the cars. They kind of walk behind the first row of cars. And I'm not sure why they do that, but I guess it might be for their safety. But you'll notice, and just about every time I came to the city, that you'll see pedestrians crossing the road kind of not in the front of the crosswalk, but further back. I'm not sure what that's about, but it's a huge thing here, and you'll see a lot of people doing it. If you remember on last Brandon video, somebody did it, and I used it for the cover photo. And this guy that looks like a younger version of Trick Daddy's doing the same thing. And he actually, is there a panhandling ordinance that people are trying to get around? I'm not sure why they do that, but like every time I come to the city, that is literally how people cross the road. Not sure why, but that's how they do it. Notice at the intersection on the right, the palm tree that got hit by lightning in front of the mobile gas station. So traffic hasn't got really bad yet. It usually gets worse than this later on in the day. But it's an area that gets extraordinarily congested. And Riverview in particular is horrendous. You'll see later on in the evening how traffic just kind of goes downhill. But this is kind of like the general setting here. You just have kind of like oak trees kind of spread out. And then every once in a while you get a shopping plaza. Yards are kind of big, so, you know, big properties. All these wooded lots are full of homeless camps. I'm not even kidding you. Like, it's not as bad as Fresno, California, but it's definitely noticeable. So I kind of did like a freestyle drive here, and I thought I could turn to the left here, and then I realized I couldn't. So I realized it's not exactly something you're supposed to do right here, but I did it. People here are kind of driving through. And there's another thing, like traffic here is pretty serious. Like I didn't let Katie drive at all through here because it's the type of place that's so congested that like you have to really be alert. So if you're not a good driver, this wouldn't really be a good area to live because not only is there a lot of volume of vehicles, but then the people here kind of drive pretty aggressively. They're always kind of like moving fast. So if you're kind of slow on your reflexes, you're probably going to have a hard time driving here. It's definitely getting on the road here takes some thinking. It's not very relaxed driving. So it's suburban, but it kind of feels like big city driving in a lot of ways. Now we're heading north again. We're on John Moore heading north. You'll notice kind of older houses. And, you know, that's the thing about these suburbs that, you know, maybe a little bit ago these were nice suburbs, but now they're kind of getting outdated. And you guys know what happens in neighborhoods when they get outdated. They get more affordable. More people start running down the properties. You even notice the property we just passed had a camper out back, so they're renting out a camper to somebody. You'll see here on the left, there's like newer houses. So this is a contrast area. You have like newer communities like the one on the left, but then you have older communities like the ones on the right. So it's kind of contrasty. You'll notice that the gated community there, they have like a wall all the way around those new houses. So it's kind of, and you can see somebody drove a car through the wall right there, typical Florida. So yes, these suburbs get kind of older. You start to see the roads get beat up, garbage on the side of the road, sidewalks that haven't been maintained. It just gets a little bit more run down. Notice like there's a streak of oil down the middle of the road there from cars that are old. So yeah, it's no longer a new suburb anymore. It's starting to show its age. It's interesting that like every time you approach an intersection in this city, there's always somebody on the sidewalks doing something strange or interesting. It's always like every time we come here, it's always a thing here. Like there's always at an intersection somebody doing something strange, walking around doing something dressed peculiar. It's kind of interesting just to stop at these lights and see the characters that are out there. All right, guys, so we're going to stop at a gas station up ahead to get some waters and take a little break. After all, we did drive from Lakewood Ranch to here. It's kind of exhausting. As soon as I got out, it wasn't even a few minutes, and somebody came out and panhandled asking me for money. I told him, hey, man, I don't have any money, but I do have a bottled water I can share with you. Now, I brought 2 bottled waters for my road trip today, and that was one of them. So it kind of sucked losing a water bottle, but I always feel like I don't want to say no to people anymore. When they ask me for food or something or money, I'm not going to give them money, by the way, but, I will give them food. And I've already fallen for the trick where I give somebody money and then they keep panhandling, or, like they ask for money and then they tell me that they're hungry. And it's always like I've literally gave somebody money and then watch her run to the corner. And that hurts, like it makes you not want to help people. Usually I always pack a little extra leftover foods or something in the fridge that probably will go bad anyways if we don't use it. I always keep a little lunchbox with me, but since we weren't that far away today, I didn't pack a lunchbox. And, usually I do carry a little bit of food. Stuff that like at the end of the day you're going to throw out anyways. Everybody deserves food. I don't know if y'all know that, but everybody deserves food. And even, I've thought long and hard on this situation because I do so much work with the homeless. You never want to give people money because usually 99.9% chance they're going to go do something bad with it. And even when I pay people for my interviews, I think if I had to break down how they spend the money, unfortunately, probably a good percentage of the money that I give to people for interviews, they go right away and gamble it. So probably 30 to 40% of the money that I distill for my interviews goes to very bad purposes. And then another 20 or 30%, probably like half of that would be people who are using it to gamble. They'll go buy scratch-off tickets. I can't tell you how many times I've interviewed people, and then later on I'll see them with scratch-off tickets. You wouldn't believe how much of a homeless person's money goes to gambling those tickets. I feel like it should almost be illegal for somebody who's homeless to buy these tickets. I feel like it's a very detrimental habit. And I think there should be more laws about those scratch off tickets. But Kay was telling me that it's all taxes. It's taxed very heavily, so the government makes money on it. So you figure, like, let's say the government gives out somebody who's disabled, right? Here's somebody who's disabled, and they get $800 a month, and they probably spend $300 or $400 of that buying lottery tickets, thinking that they're going to get a ticket that's going to buy them out of homelessness. Of course, it's never going to happen. And if they get that ticket, then they're just going to gamble it again. It's a never-ending cycle that's very heavily taxed. I mean, it's like that money just goes right back to the government for some of these people. And you know, raises the question, how much can you really help somebody who's homeless? And, like, not just regular homeless, like chronically homeless. You know, somebody who's disabled, been out there for many years, they're chronically homeless at this point. How much can you really do for that person? Because it seems like some of these people, if you gave them $1 million, eventually, not too far down the road, they would be homeless again. And I'm the type of person that, like, the more money I have, the harder I work because I feel more responsibility. And even then, you know, I've seen $100,000 disappear in 3 years working and not spending recklessly, just trying to invest and do things and stuff. So it's one of those deals where, like, man, you could give a homeless person $1 million and, like, they'd end up homeless in 3 or 4 years down the road with nothing to show for it, because it's just, there are people that don't understand money. I think the notion of giving homeless people money also kind of sets the notion in their brain that money is just out there somewhere floating in the air, and all you have to do is just knock on somebody's window to grab it or something. And it's a little bit, it takes a lot more responsibility than that to get money. It takes a lot of effort, work, dedication. It takes a little bit more to get money, you know. And I feel like sometimes homeless people don't really understand that it takes that much to get the money. Like, it's not just like you know, Mario Super game where there's floating coins in there you can just grab if you walk forward. It takes a lot more to get money. And, you know, I feel like too many times homeless people, they are so financially uneducated that they don't understand that that's not really how it works, and that it takes a lot. You can notice here, like, there's somebody sleeping back behind there, so you can see all this garbage here. You can see right on the left behind that tree over there, you can see there's actually a little homeless camp there. Somebody sleeping on a piece of cardboard. So homelessness is rampant out here. Now, throughout the day, they're going to move around. It's going to be hard to find them. So, you know, but there is a lot of homelessness. And, like this little plaza here, you might just drive through and not pay attention. But if you look a little bit carefully, you can see all the signs are there. Like, they have a fence around the lake to keep people from swimming. Look at all this stuff right here. Now, there's shopping carts with homeless people's belongings in it. I actually got out and looked around to see if I could find any needles there, and I couldn't find any needles, but I'm sure if you looked hard enough, you could find them. So usually this is something that I do just to get reconnaissance on the area, just try to figure out what the homeless people in the area are doing, because, you know, getting these interviews that I get for you guys have no idea how much background effort goes into these videos. And even here, like, you drive through this alleyway, you may not notice it. Oh, look at the hawk right there. Nice little hawk right up on the tree. But if you might drive through here and you might not notice it, but if you look behind this dumpster, you can see right behind the dumpster, there's pieces of cardboard right there. So there's somebody who's been sleeping right behind this container. You'll see there on the left when I pull up, there's cardboard there. So there's people that just sleep back in here. So that's kind of like the thing now in Florida. Of course, in California, North Carolina, they let them set up their tents and they can live in a tent. But here in Florida, the cops destroy the tents, so they have to live just on a piece of cardboard. So if it starts to rain, for example, they're unsheltered, and their food is unprotected and unsheltered as well because they can't have containers and stuff. So what happens is that while they're sleeping, the rats are crawling on them. You know, like, I feel like what's happening in Florida with the homeless population is very inhumane to a degree. Now, when it comes to the homeless population out here, you got to keep in mind that a lot of homeless people will tell you that the cops are great. But sometimes when I've had people tell me the cops are great, it's actually because they're so afraid to talk bad about the cops because they feel like they have no rights at all. So they just feel like even if a cop were to just treat them decently, they think it's incredible because the notion is that law enforcement is like coming after them. But without a doubt, there is way too much homelessness in this suburban area. And to be honest, it probably reflects what's going on in the whole country. It probably isn't disproportionate. This is probably what every other suburban area of this income level in the country is facing right now. It's a national trend, and it isn't red state or blue state. It's the whole country, every state, every city. This is proportionally what's going on in the United States. And in fact, I believe the overdose death rates in Hillsborough County, this sits in Hillsborough County, which is a Tampa county, right? Tampa's the heart of Hillsborough County. Well, with Hillsborough County and Tampa and all that, their rate is actually below the state average, probably just a little bit above the national average, not much. So it's right down the middle. This is actually a pretty bland representation of what income and crime analytics in the United States look like. This isn't extraordinarily good. It isn't extraordinarily bad. This is actually kind of like a middle ground place. You see, like here, beautiful community on the left, right? Beautiful houses, big square footage, big yards, nice landscaping. Obviously, they're going to have to pay an HOA fee on top of their taxes, right? Because they have to pay for all that landscaping work. But you just go a little bit down the road, and it gets pretty and beautiful. I mean, look at how gorgeous this little area is. Now, this is, I believe, off of Valrico. Let's see here, north of Valrico. So this is Miller Woods. This is on the north side of Valrico. So this is kind of east of Brandon already. Kind of a beautiful little area, nice sidewalks, big yards, bro, pretty. And then like you just go like a mile down the road and there'll be like a trailer park and a homeless camp. So it's very contrasty is what I'm trying to say. Most of these communities on the right, you're going to guarantee that they have an HOA because they have to keep, they have to paint the walls and all that. And it's mostly a scam too. These HOAs in Florida are a complete scam. I don't know how legislatively they look at these HOA communities and stuff like that, but I feel like a lot of it is a scam. Now, there's a Winn-Dixie here. Winn-Dixie's not the fanciest store. There's a Rita's on the corner right here. Now, usually I go around the back of business plazas because, again, I'm trying to find people that are vagrant and stuff like that so I can get my interviews. And it takes a lot of work. Like, you guys wouldn't realize how much work I got to put into this. You can see people been doing donuts on the parking lot. So, look like nice houses on the other side. This kind of reminds me of California, too. Kind of like the layout. It's very similar to California. You can see there's a person here, and he's kind of walking around the dumpsters. And I actually got an interview off of him. His name was Dirt, and he was dumpster diving when I found him. Here he is right there. I was a little nervous because he has a really good tall stature, and his behavior was a little erratic, moving around fast. So I was kind of on the fence about interviewing him. I was like, I don't know if it's safe or not, but you don't know who you're going to meet out there. That's the other thing when I get these interviews. People are like, what? No, they're like, you don't know what you're going to get out there. So I figured, what? He's dumpster diving. He's looking for food. I wasn't ready to do an interview, but I went with it just because I saw him dumpster diving, and I was like, he needs the money. So if you're dumpster diving for food, I'll help him get the interview. So you can't really see it on camera, but when I swung back around, his feet were hanging out the dumpster. He was looking for food, so I said, let me see if I can try to get this interview. If we were just going to judge by his behavior, I actually felt a little intimidated. He's a big, tall guy. He's moving around kind of erratically and stuff, and it was a little intimidating, but he was the kindest, nicest person you ever met. So, sometimes you got to give people a chance. Got to give people the benefit of the doubt. So he kind of got in his, best ability kind of dressed and prepared for the interview, which a lot of times, it's what they can do. Before I do my interviews, people always want to look good. They don't want to look bad. So they do the best they can to cover their clothes, make sure they look good and presentable. So that's like a normal process before the interviews. They usually want to look as best as they can. All right, so the interview went well. You can see the smile on my face. I was really happy to get this interview, and he was happy as well to meet me, and he wants me to interview him again. He wasn't 100% ready to kind of do a full interview. It's something maybe, they have to think about it. Like I know next time I interview him, he's going to open up again, and it's going to be a better interview, but he was a very nice person, and the interview is on our YouTube channel. You can watch that. I really don't have a number of how many interviews I've done, but I believe it's into the hundreds now, maybe close to 200 interviews here and there, little pieces and videos and different interviews. Then I got shorter interviews that I move into like other projects, smaller interviews. So I've done about maybe 200 interviews. I've lost track. I'm not sure. But then there's the interviews that I'll mix into my other videos. So I've probably interviewed about 200 people that are homeless. Most of them in the state of Florida. We've done one interview in Texas, several in Kentucky, a handful in Kentucky actually, many in Tennessee, a few in Georgia. I think we did we did a few in Ohio on this last trip up there. I wanted to get interviews in different states, but it's very difficult. Some of these states are very difficult. You can see the lines building up again. You know, this whole interviewing homeless people, if you don't know what you're doing, you don't know the right vocabulary, the right gestures, the right signs to look for, you can get hurt doing what I'm doing with these homeless interviews. You know, and the other thing is like the face value of me. For some reason, homeless people look at me and they like me. And this is something that many of the people that I've interviewed tell me. It's like, if it had been somebody else, they had zero chance of getting these interviews. There's something about my personality that's agreeable to homeless people. This guy noticed the camera, watched his head swing. So, you know, getting these interviews, it's like you have to be born for it. There's something about my personality, the way I present myself, that is agreeable to homeless people. And I'm in a very expensive vehicle too. So a lot of times that right there by itself will be a turnoff. And there's just something about my characteristic that they like. There's something about my personality that the homeless people like, and it's something that most people don't have that talent. Like, if any random person tried to do what I'm doing, they would have very, very limited success. On this particular day, I got 3 interviews, and I can tell you that I was just completely, I don't know how many views these interviews are going to get, but I was just completely fortunate that these individuals trusted me with their stories, because it's not something that anybody can get. So I actually went into the office of these mobile homes right here. It seemed like the overwhelming majority of these mobile homes were actually empty, and this is a far cry. Look through the windows. You see there's no blinds, there's nothing inside. The overwhelming majority of these mobile homes are currently empty, vacant. I believe it has something to do with the administration change, because this is probably a Hispanic area here, so I'm guessing that's what's going on. I could be wrong. Almost 80% vacant, and they're renting for $1,300 a month, and you can buy one, but you don't own the land. I would never buy a mobile home in a place where you don't own the land. So $1,300 a month, roughly, you can rent a mobile home in here. So if anybody's looking for a cheap rent, and I thought too, like, what if I were to rent in a place like this? And I can guarantee you, with my expensive truck, if I rented here, it wouldn't be 2 weeks before somebody would break into my vehicle. So, and if they find out I'm a YouTuber, which they will, then they're going to try to break in and steal my equipment. So it's something where not everybody, it's weird how like you get to a point where you can't live in a place like this. But I grew up in places like this. This is the type of place I grew up in Naples down there. And it's weird how now I couldn't live in a place like this. Once they found out you're a YouTuber, I couldn't live in a place like this. Now, the people were chill, quiet. If I was a normal guy working at Publix, it would be a great place to live. But me, with being a YouTuber, it makes things really weird. It really does. Like, even where I live now, most of the people, and I haven't told anybody, but they all know that I'm a YouTuber. It's kind of weird. Almost everybody, all my neighbors, the people at the leasing office and all that, everybody here probably knows I'm a YouTuber. And it's just kind of weird. It's an odd thing to do for a living. It really is. And I'm sure if I moved to like a regular trailer park like this with a nicer, fancier car, it wouldn't be long before that window gets smashed. Because I live in a nice suburb in Lakewood Ranch, and I just had my door pulled last night. So it's kind of a thing here in Florida. You have a lot of car break-ins, and they call it car shacking. But anyways, if you're looking for an affordable place, I went in here, and for roughly about $1,300, you can get a 2-bedroom. Some are going to be less, some are going to be more. So there's not too many places in Florida where you can rent for that price range. So and there's a lot of vacancy here. So if anybody's looking for affordable rent, I would definitely recommend this place. I think it's called Valrico something. Valrico Point. I can't remember. If anybody knows the name, leave it in the comments, please. it seems clean and well kept, and the people that I saw seem like nice people too. So it's not a fancy place, but it's a nice place, and they're trying to get new people in there. I'm sure they probably either recently renovated everything or lost a lot of people with the new changes. So I wouldn't mind living in a place like this. It's not me. I'm not the one that's a problem. The problem with me living in a place like this against like being a YouTuber, it's like. But anyways, I did this for you guys in case somebody's looking for affordable rent. It's hard to find something for $1,300. So they are mobile homes, of course. So if it gets cold, it gets cold. It's being in a mobile home on a cold night. It's not easy. All right, guys, so we just passed the Delta Food Mart. We are now in Seffner, Florida, on Kingsman or Kingsway, whatever the crap, in Wheeler. So now we're heading west, back towards Tampa. We're in Sefner, heading towards Mango, and this is definitely Sefner out here, aka the Mefner. The name says it all, and unfortunately, the name isn't far from the stereotype. Isn't far from the name. It's kind of sad, but that is actually the big thing out here. Now, many years ago, I would have done a video for Sefner, Riverview, Brandon, Valrico. Each individual suburb would have got its own video, but our YouTube channel now is getting close to 200,000 subscribers. So I have to put these into a bundle and say, this is East Hillsboro, this is the Brandon area, because as my YouTube channel gets bigger, I just can't do those small videos of small places. Like, those videos, no matter how great, like, even if, like, Drew Binsky, like, the biggest YouTuber on earth, came to Valrico, his video would never get more than so many views outside of his subscriber base, maybe limited. So it's one of those deals where no matter how hard I try, it's gonna have limited, and I'm getting to the point where my YouTube channel is big enough to where I just can't do that anymore. So if you're wondering why this is one long run-on video, is because now on my channel, you got to look for this stuff. It's just the channel's got bigger and it's laid out differently. Here's another Winn-Dixie Plaza. Now, in this shopping plaza, there's a Haitian-Jamaican restaurant. If anybody knows what that's like, let me know. There's also a really nice, looks like a Latin pawn shop there. What makes a pawn shop Latin? I think it was what it said. Let's see what it's saying. I think it's like, it said Latin jewelry and Latin pawn shop. Look at that. There's a Latino pawn shop. It's just Latino things. Like, what makes it Latino? That's just hilarious. All right, guys, so now it's later in the evening. We're leaving Seffner, going into Mango, and we're going to get on Interstate 75 and go south. You'll notice that the drivers got a little hectic. On the left, we just passed Sam's Seafood and Grill. We actually have one in Bradenton, Florida. I love their food, but let me tell you, not healthy at all. I love their food. I'm not going to lie. It's great food, for my opinion, but what type of fat are they using on that food? Because every person that walks in there is very obese, including myself. So I love their food. Anyways, I just noticed that that's there on the left. Sam's, they're in I think they're in St. Pete, Bradenton, and there's also another one very similar. It's kind of more Greek foodish. It's called Zico. So I know there's one as well in St. Pete, Bradenton here. So those are kind of local eateries that are kind of fast food, but a little bit more underground. A lot of traffic. I noticed that as I started driving this way into Tampa, traffic got a little bit more chaotic and drivers got a little bit more crazy. And I actually had a few close calls in traffic as people just became desperate to get back into Tampa for the evening. Notice a homeless person here with, looks like a mattress on a cart. The cops do run the homeless people out, trespass them, so they have to move from one place to the next. And that means moving everything they have on a little wagon. Kind of sad, but that's the reality of homelessness in the United States. This isn't the worst part of Sefner. We are kind of in the center of the more commercialized part of it. There's actually parts that are really bad, but it got late on us, and we had something happen that made our entire day change course, so we had to get back home. Lots of homelessness. You'll see it out there. And like, again, this isn't the worst part of Sefner. A little bit north of here, close to Interstate 4, it actually gets a lot worse. But let's get going. I'll show you guys some of the clips from the crazy drivers I met as we're heading towards Interstate 75. And if you pay close attention, you'll see people walking around, homeless people, vagrancy, all that, like you would expect just about anywhere in the United States right about now. All right, guys, so now we are back in Riverview where we started, and we're actually going to eat out in, I think it's like an Arab restaurant, and it's pretty good. I love their food. It's just been some of the best Arab food I've ever had, so they're back in Riverview. And I actually drove on 301 all the way back down to Lakewood Ranch where I live because Interstate 75, as you saw, was bumper to bumper. It just didn't make sense to stay on 75, so it actually became a closer drive on 301 all the way back, and it was kind of busy like this. So it was kind of a hectic drive. I try not to get caught with the regular commuters, but on this particular day, we didn't have a choice, and we actually got caught in some pretty crappy commuting traffic, which made a 45-minute drive literally add an hour to it, kidding you not. So I'll show you guys the place where we got food at. The place is called Amar. There it is right there. Now, if you've never had Mediterranean or Arab food, it's amazing. Rice with kebabs and like chopped tomatoes with like little lettuces and stuff and cucumbers in it, I think it is. I personally love Arabic food, and I definitely recommend this restaurant. So one good thing about Riverview is that they actually do have a lot of great food. So if you ever find yourself in Riverview or in the Tampa area looking for some good Middle Eastern cuisine, try Amar. Their prices are good. Their food's fresh. And it's very nice in there. It's not fancy, but it's not bad. It's kind of like just real nice, run-of-the-mill restaurant. But their food's amazing. They're very highly rated. And if you want to try Middle Eastern food, I definitely recommend it. I personally have fallen in love with Middle Eastern food at this point.